honestly, at this point, we probably have realized that PSA is the top of the top when it comes to grading. You know, their slabs get the most amount if you're trying to sell them. I mean, honestly, I think even their pricing has gotten to a point where it's like it's affordable to get cards graded by PSA nowadays. I mean, I just got like a bunch of cards graded at the National, and they're actually being shipped back in the next like week or so. Which the National, I mean, sure, it was probably like it was like a month ago, but it's like the amount of time it took to grade all the cards. You know, it used to be months and months and months you would wait, and now so that's also good. But then their social media. Also, one of their best attributes when it comes to grading, in my opinion, because they give out so much information on social media. They make some pretty good content, in my opinion. And so basically the two cards I'm going to talk about that were graded by PSA. So there was the one-of-one Caitlin Clark Superfractor autograph that came out of this year's Bowman basketball for Bowman U basketball, which this is her first Bowman, and it's a licensed card, so this will, depending on how well she does, this could be her biggest card. And I think the one thing that's different between male and female athletes is like this card for her, there aren't going to be a ton of other cards, really. Like even with WNBA, for any of their products, for example, like Panini, and I'm not 100% sure if WNBA falls under the NBA licensing agreement, because I know that they are partnering entities, but I don't know if now that Topps and Fanatics are getting the NBA, if they're also going to get WNBA. Either way, Panini has only really started making women's basketball cards like more than they had like in 2020, like Sabrina Ionescu. I don't know how to pronounce her last name. I always mispronounce it on the podcast and whenever I'm saying it, but I think you probably know who I'm talking about. By her name is very unique, and I think it's close enough. Sorry to her. I will actually get the pronunciation right in the future episodes. I'll say that. But so they made Prism her year, the first year, and I believe that would have been 2020. And since then, they made, I think, 2021 Prism, and then I think they made 2022, and I believe that they came out with an optic product. But like I said, there just isn't a lot of women's products. So, like, for Caitlin Clark, this first Bowman card is going to, like, if she goes on to be as good as many people think she is, this is going to be a monster card for her. This is going to be one of her biggest cards. Any of the cards coming out of that product, I think, are going to be really, really big cards and really desirable cards that we're going to see in the future. And it's totally different. Like, when I was looking into women's basketball cards, like, way back in the day, like, I was looking into Becky Hammon, who's a coach who almost became, she's the coach for the Vegas WNBA team. She was an assistant for the San Antonio Spurs, so there was a chance that she was going to become the first female coach in the NBA. I still think she's probably the closest to doing that, if I'm going to be honest. I don't know of many other women coaches that have been in the system that would translate over there, as, like I said, but whatever. So, like, I was looking into, I think it was, like, Fleer Ultra from, like, 2003. Like, again, not that many cards, so it's kind of easy to find a card that's her earliest. But either way, so Caitlin Clark, and then the other card is the one-of-one Victor Wembanyama draft autograph. That was also graded by PSA. And that's another card where it was, well, technically print on demand, but it was the one-of-one from that print on demand set, one-of-one autograph, for example. So I still also think like that one-of-one Superfractor from actually the same set, which is kind of interesting. Both of those athletes, if they go on to be as good as people think that they're going to be, they have cards coming out of that same set. So Wembanyama has a card coming out of 2022, 2023 Bowman Chrome U, which the autographs were all redemptions, so I'm not 100% sure. I think the autographs are all live. Like, I'm pretty sure he signed all the autographs. So if you get your redemptions, you can send them in, I'm pretty sure. I haven't seen the one-of-one Superfractor autograph pulled for Wembanyama yet. I believe I did see a couple months ago the one-of-one the Superfractor non-autograph. I'm pretty sure I did see that one pulled. And like I said, PSA is using these cards being graded as marketing opportunities, which I think is really smart if you're a hobby company, trying to do successful marketing. I think, showing the card in the slab is really like one of the best ways for marketing, which I've talked about this in the past too, and this is a little bit off tangent, but it is about marketing. It's kind of marketing. The sports card industry is like, it's got to be one of the only industries that has given so much free advertising to the companies that do it. Like, sure, maybe you could say like the sneaker industry, maybe potentially, but like every single day they're getting millions, every single day sports card and hobby companies are getting millions and millions and millions and millions of impressions for free because people are posting their cards on Instagram, they're talking about cards on Twitter, they're making YouTube videos talking about cards. So it's like Panini and Topps and PSA and SGC and BGS, they're getting so much free advertising. It's actually really insane, if I'm going to be completely honest, and it's really like a testament. I don't know, I'm not sure what it says about our industry, but it is just interesting to see that our industry has really changed the marketing for these companies pretty significantly. Like, and Breakers, I think that's another perfect example. I mean, sure, they're making money from, trying to sell their products, but like, that's just marketing. Like, people who make videos, that's just marketing. It's all just free marketing for these companies, which I think is very interesting. But I also think that PSA, out of any of the other companies, does a really good job. I think SGC is definitely number 2 in that category of like hobby companies that do good marketing, showing their products and showing like the use case for their products, which grading cards is maybe not exactly a use case per se, but I think like PSA does a great job when they get one of those big cards. When they got the Jason Dominguez Superfractor 1 of 1, they did marketing around that. They do marketing around all of these big cards, and I just think that I guess I would maybe like to see Beckett do a little bit better of a job, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know. I mean, every they're getting a lot of RPAs, so it's like, they do the 1 of 1 RPA, but I don't know. Maybe it's PSA doing something where too, like, their grades are going to be a little bit higher in some cases than Beckett potentially. I don't know about SGC in terms of how hard they grade, but like PSA may also be looking at it and saying, well, we know that these cards are getting high grades, so that's why we're also going to promote that these huge monster cards are coming in. We're grading them. They're getting good grades. I don't know if that's a testament to people sending in good cards and cards making better quality, or if it's like a detriment to PSA, maybe grading a little bit easier so that way they can get a little bit more publicity on some of these cards. I think, if I'm being honest, I think these cards, I think there are definitely certainly scenarios where people are submitting these big cards and the people at PSA know who these people are. And I don't know if they're getting preferential treatment on some of the grades, but I would say it's not a 0% chance. I don't know what the percentage chance is. I would say it's definitely going on. I don't know what the percentage chance would be, and I don't really even know how to fix it, to be honest. And that's not really something for this episode, for it's fixed grading, I guess. But this was kind of the whole point, which is that I think PSA does really good marketing, and these 2 cards from these 2 superstars, if they go on to be great, could be some pretty monster cards that are in PSA slabs. The voting came out for the upcoming, or not the upcoming, but the 2026 National. And it is going to be going back to Chicago, which I think is a phenomenal choice. Basically, the breakdown, I was surprised a little bit by the breakdown, if I'm going to be completely honest. The breakdown of the ballots for, like I said, the 2026 National, maybe not, I think I might have said 2025, it's 2026. I think 2024 it's going to be in Cleveland, 2025 it's going to be in Chicago, and then 2026 it was just voted for Chicago again. Which, if they were to just hold all the Nationals in Chicago, I would be fine with that. I mean, I think the area has a lot to do. The downtown's pretty nice. Like, it's fairly easy to get there. The area around the area around the Rosemont Convention Center, I'm a big fan of. There's tons of food places. There's a casino down the street. It's really good. So the options that the dealers had were Atlanta, Atlantic City, and Chicago. And obviously, all I've heard, I've only been to Nationals in Chicago, so maybe my aspect is a little skewed on, like, where my favorite place is, but, like, I've been to 3 Nationals. It's 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I've been to 3 Nationals in Chicago. Like I said, love the venue, love the hotels. Wait. Yeah, 3. I've stayed there at 2. One time I didn't stay overnight. But love the venue, love all the stuff that's going on, like all the nightlife, all that kind of stuff. all I heard last year, or I guess it would have been 2022, was how bad Atlantic City was. Like, everyone complained about how it was not very safe. If there were people were saying they were not feeling very safe when you left the venue. It was kind of sketchy. To get there was impossible. But like up until last year, and it may have been because in 2020 they were supposed to have the Atlantic City National. It wasn't there, so I guess it would have been 2017 or 2018 would have been the last time they had a national in Atlantic City. So, you know, I don't know. Maybe that's probably the reason why I didn't really hear about people not liking Atlantic City until they had it last year. So the way the votes broke down, it was Chicago 177. So that was the winner. I think I may have not mentioned that, but 2026 Nationals going to be back in Chicago. I think I did maybe mention that. But then Atlantic City had 111 votes, and then Atlanta only had 52 votes. Now, Atlanta is, I think that would be a great location for it. I think they have some pretty good convention centers around the area. So, like I said, I'm a little bit surprised that people wanted to go with Atlantic City over Atlanta, and that so many people picked Atlantic City because, like I said, all I really heard was bad things about Atlantic City. Now, it could be that maybe the dealers and people talking about the National, like, maybe they're on two different, like, playing fields, I guess, in terms of, like, where they would want the show. Like, I'm not 100% sure why there were so many votes for Atlantic City. When the votes came out, I was very surprised. I wasn't surprised that Chicago won, but I was surprised that it was actually as close as it was, and that Atlantic City got second, and then Atlanta got third. I went to the Culture Collision last time. It was in Atlanta. Which that's actually where Culture Collision happens in Atlanta. But I went, I think it might have been like 6 or 7 months ago I went. It was pretty nice. I went on one of the last days, so it was definitely a little bit slower than, like, I think probably other days of the show. But I do think that the National, I would be okay with it always just happening in Chicago. I do think it should be in, like, the middle of the country, so that way it's fairly easy if you want to go, because, like, you can go from either side of the country and get there fairly easily. I think Chicago's a pretty big airport, too, so, like, you know, if you're going to O'Hare, I probably wouldn't go to the other Midway, I think, is the other Chicago airport, so O'Hare is obviously way closer than Midway, but there's a ton of travel. There's a ton of ways to get in. It's a fairly easy drive, too, if you want to drive there. Like, it's, you just take some pretty simple highways to get there. Like I said, I don't know if, we are going to see Fanatics taking over some of the events business, I think. So I don't know what that's going to mean for shows like the Dallas Card Show. There's a show in Boston, the Fenway Show. There's the Burbank Show out on the West Coast. I almost think that they should do some sort of, like, almost like a 4 corners or like a 5 corners, maybe do one in, like, Miami, maybe. I mean, I know that there was one in Miami. I don't remember. I remember Aaron, I think, from Slabstocks went down there, and it looked like the venue was pretty nice. But I think, like, if they were to do one, like, like I said, like in California, Chicago, Dallas, Boston, Miami, I do think that they almost could make these, like, hubs. They do need to. I think that the shows should work together to make sure that they can maximize attendance at these shows. Obviously, they're different companies, so they don't really necessarily care one way or the other what the other shows are doing. They're definitely keeping an eye out for, but the colluding, which I don't know if that's necessarily the correct word, but, like, the working together aspect of the shows, I don't know. I don't know if they're necessarily down for that. I think it would be a good idea. I think the National is, the branding of the National, too, I think is one that I don't know if the National would be able to brand other shows like the National, because I think it's almost like the Super Bowl, I guess. It's like you wouldn't be able to necessarily, not exactly the same thing, but it's not like you would just be able to call other games the Super Bowl, really. Like, this one Super Bowl is the one Super Bowl. The one National is the one National every year. So, like, I don't know if, like, they somehow, one company comes, maybe it's Fanatics, I don't know, I'm kind of hoping maybe not, but, like, just because Fanatics has has everything else basically. Like maybe they can just stay away from shows and figure it out. Whatever. I don't know. That's beside the point. But like, I almost think that there's a way that maybe a company could come in and sort of brand these shows similarly. So that way, if you are either a dealer or you're a seller, that like you can figure out a way to make your trip, build on the trips, I guess, if that makes sense. Like 2 times a year, it's the National, and then the National runs like a secondary show. That's I don't know where that would be, but I almost think they could do a Chicago National every year, and then at some other point during the year do a show in the South somewhere, where maybe it's during the winter where the weather is, people wanting to get out of the cold weather. That would be pretty nice. But either way, in 2026, the National is going to be back in Rosemont, and like I said, I am extremely excited for that. So luckily, they didn't mess this up on a big prospect. They unfortunately, it looks like they packed 2 one-of-one superfractors in this year's Bowman, which I mean, even granted, honestly, the issue here, I mean, there's obviously a bunch of issues. One of them could be like, who knows? Like, just because this guy isn't a big guy right now doesn't mean he won't be a good player in the future. I'm actually not sure how to pronounce his last name. It's Victor is Taurus. He is a Guardians prospect. He's a catcher, and this is his first Bowman, and they unfortunately packed 2 one-of-ones, which one was pulled by they were both pulled by breakers from what it looks like. Now, it leaves me speechless when stuff like this happens, because like, was this a mistake where they didn't put like a sticker auto on, or they didn't have him sign the card correctly, and like that's why these 2 cards were packed? I mean, it's such an unfortunate mistake, and like I think it happens probably more than we realize, and I think it honestly has happened more than we've realized, to be completely honest. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if there were one-of-one autographs that this has happened to, where the player just signed 2 one-of-one autographs. Like, for the most part, players don't really know what they're signing. Like, they just know that they're signing a baseball card. They don't know that, like, the one-of-one or, like, the low-numbered autographs are supposed to be, like, some of the most coveted. Some of them do now, probably, but back in the day, like, probably even 5 years ago, realistically, they didn't know what they were signing. Like, their agent came over with a box of cards, and they were just signing a bunch of cards. Like, that's probably something that's happened. So, with this card, I mean, I don't think Bowman they use, I'm pretty confident in the Bowman Chrome. Like, for baseball, they don't use sticker autographs. I guess there's a chance that they may. I'm not 100% sure off the top of my head whether they do or don't. They shouldn't, in my opinion. Like, this should be a card that is an on-card autograph, and that also goes to maybe the debate on whether, we should get more autographs for stickers, or if they should just all be on card and less autographs. Now, they would probably want to do more stickers, because then they could put the sticker autograph on like way more cards. And then if they're having them sign the sheet rather than having them sign the cards themselves, it probably costs them a lot less to ship. They don't have to ship like a whole box. They don't have to worry about the cards after the fact. And I mean, in this scenario, they unfortunately just packed 2 one-of-ones. Like, and that's, I mean, we have seen like 1-of-5s and fakes be, promoted, that they were being sold and then they turned out to be fake. But this is like 2 different breakers, both pulled the 1-of-1. And the other point that I think I kind of touched on was like, this is one of the, like, I would say the good parts about social media. Like, if social media wasn't around, we probably never would have known this was a thing. I think without social media, there probably wouldn't be breakers, which mean there would be less products. So I don't know. I think I can see the argument about why I think social media, or why people don't like social media when it comes to cards. But I think that there are more positives than negatives. I definitely think that there are negatives, but I think that there are more positives. And I think this is something that, even though it's a negative situation, there's a positive thing that's going to happen here. Topps even replied to, I think it was Eric Whiteback's tweet, I'm pretty sure, I know that Topps tweeted at somebody. I forget exactly who they tweeted at. I know I saw it when I was kind of seeing the initial information come in about this story. So in this scenario, Topps is aware of the issue because of social media, and I don't necessarily know what they're going to do about it. Like, because it's like, what could you do? What can you even do about this? It's not like they can just replace the card. It's not like it's a damaged card and they can make a new one and replace it. Like, they made two of the same card. Now, like I said, it's not a big prospect, but that doesn't mean a prospect who's not big right now, that doesn't mean he's not going to be good in the future. So, like, in the future, there's going to be multiple one-of-ones of this Bowman card. And I don't really know what you do here. Like, if you're Topps, like, do you request both cards and then hope that one person sends the card back, or that both people send the card back, and then you figure out what you can do value-wise, like, and just take the cards completely off the market? We have seen, it was either Topps or PSA, I believe. They did this with the Juan Soto Superfractor one-of-one autograph was actually altered. It was in a BGS slab, and someone cracked it, and they actually altered the autograph, and then PSA graded it. Like, they gave it a full grade and an auto grade. And when they got wind, and like I said, I forget if it was Topps or PSA were the ones that bought the card back. I have a feeling it was PSA, but you know, that's a scenario where they bought the card, they completely took it off the market. I think that's probably what they should try and do here, in my opinion at least, is just, unfortunately, this player is just not going to have a one-of-one Superfractor, like, from his first Bowman. Like, that's, realistically, that's what should happen, because down the road, these types of stories don't necessarily get the coverage, like, later on. Like, you know, like, sure, if, I guess if this guy becomes a big superstar or whatever, there probably will be stories down the road of, you know, whatever, Eric Whiteback, or there could be, like, probably, like, Darren Ravel, Action Network, or any of the, like, you know, hobby kind of news people. They would probably cover it as, like, this is him. Like, because this is not something that I guess that we know happens all the time. This is one that got documented that we know for 100% fact happens. So, like, when this player makes his way up, each step of the way, there's probably going to be some story about how he has two one-of-one Superfractors. And if I had to guess, hopefully Topps comes out with some sort of statement, or what they're exactly trying to do, or what they're going to do with these two cards, because this is a pretty big mess up, like, for what is going to be that player's best card, most likely, other than the autograph, I think, obviously. But now I'm thinking, like, the autograph might just not exist. Like, that's what I'm thinking happened here. Like, the one-of-one autograph and then the one-of-one non-autograph, they, unfortunately, whoever was doing QC, or whoever was supposed to put together the product and pack these cards, they just didn't. The Superfractor, for whatever reason, the Superfractor autograph didn't get signed, and it wasn't produced the way that the other autographs are produced, so that just created two one-of-one non-autograph Superfractors. That's what I'm guessing happened here, but at the same time, like, it's really such a wild situation that it's really anyone's guess how this happened, or what Topps is even going to do in the future about these two cards. So, two big stories have developed over the past few days with Panini. The first one, I guess I'll touch on pretty quick, and then I guess both of them are kind of tied in together, I guess. I'm not really sure if they're tied together, but Panini, it seems like they have just kind of got like too big almost for their own good. Like, the first story that came out was there was a redemption card that someone was waiting on, and then it ended up just being pulled in a different product. Like, it was just a live autograph in a different product. I think it was Sports Card Radio tweeted that out earlier. I think it was yesterday or the day before. And yeah, and this is the thing. It was just a Plaxico Burress autograph from Panini Patches and Plates, and the redemption was supposed to come out of Panini Elements from 2022, and then apparently it was put into a box of 2023 Patches and Plates, which, like, Patches and Plates, that I'm not super familiar, if I'm going to be honest, with the product itself. If I had to guess, it's probably just like printing plates and patch memorabilia cards, if I had to guess, it just based off the name. But, like, it just is insane that stuff like this can happen. Like, like I said, it just, you know, Panini has really shown over the past few years that they just are looking for the growth. They're not really looking for customer quality. Like, they're not looking for QC. All they really have done over the past, and this goes back to, like, even honestly, the lawsuit where they said they were, they innovated in the space and they gloated about the growth of the growth of their company from like 100 million to like 1 billion or 2 billion or something. And it's like, all you have to really do is look at the numbers on a spreadsheet. How many cards did you produce? How many cards did you sell? I can 100% guarantee the growth came from them just making more stuff. Like, sure, maybe it wasn't 100% profit from the more stuff that they made, but like it's got to be at least 75 to 80% of the extra money that they made was because they just made more stuff. I guess you could also say, like, yeah, maybe there was a little bit of the industry becoming more popular, and that's why more people were buying stuff. But then more people buying stuff led to them making more stuff. But that really didn't make the hobby better. And I think I can look at it, obviously, in hindsight and think, like, maybe more products and maybe more product in general isn't a good thing, when before I was like, it's not that big of a deal. But it clearly is, because Panini clearly just cared about making money here. They didn't really think about the QC of the products. They didn't really care if the products were interesting or not. All they really cared about was selling more products to breakers, and then breakers selling products to customers. And, even, getting stuff to stores and getting more stuff in stores. Like, I went into a Target yesterday and saw, like, so much stuff on the shelves, which was amazing, and it was good, and I'm really glad that there's stuff for people to buy. But like, it just makes me, like, it was every single product you could think of. It was Select, it was Mosaic, it was Prism. It was like, I just miss sort of the days where it was like the product of the time, the product of that period was what was on the shelves, and you could go and buy it then. And then maybe after a new product was coming out, they just weren't getting the stuff delivered, which, in my opinion, they probably have like a ton of stuff in these back rooms, which is good because you can always get it, but it's bad because it's product that's just sitting on the shelves. Now, the other story that has come out is that the WWE has terminated its partnership with Panini. And apparently what Darren Ravel was saying was this happened 2 weeks ago, and Panini didn't stop selling products, or they didn't stop selling. I don't exactly understand. I'm still, it's still, this is a newer and developing story, so we're still getting some information on it. Like, we don't exactly know what terminating the partnership means. Like, I get that it probably means something along the lines of they can't make more product, but it's like, does that mean that the product that they've already made, they can't come out with? Because what Darren Ravel was saying was that Fanatics is going to come in and take the partner, or going to take the license right away. And I talked about this last week with WWE and UFC, now the same company. Technically, they're owned by the same company. Does this then mean that the UFC is also going to go to Fanatics sooner rather than later? There was still, and from what Ravel said, there was still 2 years on the Panini WWE deal, which is something that I didn't know at the time when I recorded the podcast last week. And I said that this was going to be one of the biggest mergers, and I still think it is one of the biggest mergers, because now we could be seeing a complete overhaul in what Panini can even make of product. Like, they're going to only, like, the only thing Panini really had was WWE, UFC, they have FIFA, they have the stuff that or the World Cup stuff that they can make, which that's not even every year. I mean, they can make like Euros, which is I believe that's every 4 years, but it's on the off year of the World Cup, which then they could make, I don't know, they could come in and they could make like CONCACAF stuff and USA and Mexico, and they could make all the different leagues that they want. But it's like, I don't know. It's crazy. It's another crazy story that is still developing a little bit. And it really is like, I don't know what Panini is going to do here. Like, this seems like a move that is like Fanatics is orchestrating somehow. I don't know how, but it's just like, it just is one after another after another. It's like, there's the wild card thing with, they got sued for $25 million, which, like, if you're wild card, that's like your revenue for a couple years, probably. Like they're probably looking at it and saying like, this is, you know, and granted maybe not, but either way, I think you probably understand the point. Like, this is like a huge massive boost for them, for their revenue, a $25 million lawsuit that they won because Panini just stole a thing in 2020. That's massive. And then now this, and they lose all the licenses. Like, I don't know what Panini can really even do at this point. Like, unless they just completely pull out of the U.S. market and just completely focus on the like the European and Italian market for like, because the stickers for soccer are still pretty big for Panini, but it's like, even at that point, it's like our, you know, overseas people are not. It's not like they follow stuff that's going on in sports cards. So people that are buying that kind of stuff, like, they're going to see this type of news and wonder what the hell's going on. And I don't know. I mean, it really is just, and then you have the Fanatics lawsuits with, you know, the people going from Panini to Fanatics, and then Panini suing Fanatics, and then Fanatics counter suing Panini, and it's like, it really is just like somebody, you know, obviously they're not going to do this, but like somebody from Panini needs to come out and they need to say something like they have, and then I also saw that like Backyard Breaks open up another crazy box with like 3 1-of-1s, and then like all of them were autographs, and it was like the craziest flawless football box and I don't know, that could have just been clickbait. You know, Backyard Breaks opens up a crazy box, that's kind of clickbait, but like still, like, they have not come out with any sort of statement saying that they don't give the loaded boxes to breakers or anything like that, which I think it's 50-50. I think that they know what cards go in what box, but I don't think that they're necessarily giving certain boxes to breakers, but I do think that they know what cards are going in what box. So if they are giving a box, like, they know what cards are in what box, and they know that if they're giving a certain case or a certain box to, if it's being allocated, they know what cards are going there. So they know that. I don't think they're navigating and moving stuff around to say, we're going to give these people these cards, and so that way they can open them up in their breaks. Now, if that comes out, I don't even know. Like, that could completely take down. Because the other thing is, like, them putting the... It's just, like, I don't know where the legal line is here, honestly, if I'm looking at Panini and just in general. Like, where is the legal line when it comes to, you have a redemption, like Panini, like redemptions, I do not, they are the stupidest, most idiotic thing in all of sports cards. It is the most infuriating thing in all of cards, other than the Panini points, which they got rid of, thank goodness. They got rid of those. But like redemptions, it's like, you know, just figure out how to get the cards in the box. Like, how hard, like, I understand, like, some players, there's going to be issues, but it's like, figure it out. Like, figure it out. Like, stop putting these redemptions in these products. I'm talking about Fanatics and Topps, like, or Fanatics and Panini, not just Panini, because Topps has been bad at doing that too. But like, the fact that there's a Panini redemption that's going to be filled and the card gets put into another thing, it's like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? And it's so, you know, I usually don't get as animated over stuff like this, and I know the show is running a little bit long here, but it's like, it's just so, like, idiotic. It's so ridiculous that it's like, it makes the industry look so bad that we have these problems that it's like, how could somebody that's new come in and trust the industry at all? How could they see stuff like this on social media and be like, yeah, no, this seems like everything's on the up and up? Because it's not. I don't think it necessarily, I don't think it is. Like, there's just things that, and I don't know if it's necessarily someone's fault or if someone's doing it on purpose, but it's just like, things need to be tightened up a little bit. And I don't know how that's going to happen, but I'm hoping that over the next few years, whatever happens with Panini, whatever happens with Fanatics, that we can just tighten some of these issues up, because it's honestly making the industry look kind of bad. So a few months ago, Topps announced they were going to be doing something different in this year's Bowman Chrome product. Now, Bowman Chrome is typically in the past been kind of focused on rookies. There have been first Bowman cards that are coming out of Bowman Chrome, but for the most part, Bowman Draft and then Bowman Baseball, those two products kind of at the start of the year and then at the end of the year are the two where you're going to see a lot more first Bowmans, because obviously Bowman Baseball is going to have, I think it's the way they do it, is the second pick and then a couple of the international signings that have come across throughout the offseason. And then Bowman Draft at the end of the season is going to typically be the players from the drafts, which they have split it up. I believe in 2021, they did Bowman Draft. That was the first 3 picks. In the past, usually it's the first pick and the third pick. Then that second pick, like I said, is going to be in that next year's Bowman baseball. So something they were unveiling, I guess they did this for this year's Bowman Chrome, because the video that I saw was from Bowman Chrome. And it was not Bowman Draft. It was not Bowman Baseball. It was from Bowman Chrome. They said that they were going to be coming out with something called a hot pack, is what they called it, basically. And one of the first ones that was caught on camera actually was pulled. And in this pack, there are 8 autographs. Now, the tweet I saw was from, again, I don't know, collectibles guru Eric Whiteback. I follow him. I follow his content. I think he does good content. I think he is making some adjustments, in my opinion, at least. It was one of the biggest criticisms, I think, of his content was that he wasn't tagging anybody. Like, he was just posting stuff and just not tagging anybody. And that was, people were getting pretty mad about it. So I do think I've seen him tag people much more frequently, following, there's no guidelines, but following some of the criticism that people have been giving him. But either way, he posted this. So Shy City pulled a one of these hot packs. Now they open up the pack. I'm gonna kind of you can find the tweet if you go to, I'm sure if you go to Shy City Pulls, you can find the actual video. Basically, he opens the pack, and I think there's 10 cards in the pack, and 8 of the cards are autographs, and they're all first Bowman autographs too, which is pretty crazy. And there's some colored autographs in there, which is also really cool. And like I said at the top of the show, I'm kind of a fan of this. I think it is kind of a cool way for Topps to, it's almost the complete opposite, in my opinion, of what I don't know how many of these packs there are necessarily, but it's almost the complete opposite of the concept of like Topps trying to collate everything out to make it so there's less and less and less and less and less memorabilia and autographs in these packs. Like, they're trying to make it so that way they can basically create as many sets, as many versions of the product as they want. Not versions, but as many boxes of the product as they want. And this is almost doing the complete opposite, because if you're putting 8, like, realistically, if you're looking at a Bowman Chrome hobby box, you're probably going to get, I'm not 100% sure about this, but I think it's guaranteed you get at least 2 autographs in there. I'm pretty sure that's how it goes. It may be 2 or 3. I'm not 100% sure, but they're putting 8 autographs in one pack, which I think it is definitely a wild concept, and I would be interested to see if they do this in the future, or if this were to drive sales towards the product. I mean, it is kind of like a sort of like a novelty thing, and I think it's similar to, like, if you were to look at some of the other things that Topps and Fanatics have done throughout this past year, like as Fanatics has kind of taken over the reins in terms of like what Topps is putting out. It's all basically Fanatics' decision, which, granted, they probably combine teams in terms of what the product managers and all these kinds of things. So they probably have combined teams. But in reality, Fanatics is probably getting the last say, because Fanatics is they're at the top, and then Topps is owned by Fanatics. So like, but I don't know. I don't know exactly the corporate structure of the company right now, if I'm going to be completely honest. But they have done some novelty things. They've done the Bowman Chrome or the Bowman U. They've done like those cards that were like the follow back cards, which I thought were pretty cool. They've done more stuff around college, like around they've done like the Bowman U, like the Bowman Next. I don't know if they still call it Bowman Next. They might just call it Bowman U at this point. But they've done more novelty types of products and cards over these past couple years, or over this past year, not past couple years, sorry, the past year they have done that, which I'm a fan of. I think that the more that they do this, the more that, I think if they do this, they need to make sure that they're careful that they're not trying to grab people with an advertising incentive that isn't actually true to what sports cards really are. And I think that's actually kind of a big thing when it comes to like trying to drive marketing and traffic towards new stuff within sports cards is like, breaking is I think breaking is a pretty good example of this, if I'm going to be completely honest. Like, I think breaking almost is selling people a false hope of what sports cards and opening packs of cards really is. Like, because all of the marketing, you're seeing all of the marketing behind breaking, and all the marketing is, we pulled this crazy card, this card was pulled, this is a crazy card, there's all these crazy cards. But it's like, in actuality, if you're buying these boxes, like, the reality that you're going to be able to pull one of these cards is a lot less than what you're seeing in terms of social media and all of these things. Because you also, sure, for example, all of these breakers, they will pull all of these crazy cards, but you don't see that they're breaking for 8 to 10 hours a day. Like, you're going to see, there's a chance that they could pull 1 or 2 or 3 crazy cards in a whole day, but the fact that they're opening packs for, like I said, 8 to 10 hours a day is something that they're not going, that's not something you're going to see in marketing, like with breaking. Like, you're not going to see them be like, yeah, we did this for 10 hours today and we only pulled these 2 crazy cards. Like, sure, they're probably some of the crazier cards, but like, they're just not going to frame it that way. They're going to frame it with, we pulled these cards, you should come break with us because there's a chance that you could pull these crazy cards. And I'm hoping that Fanatics and Topps look at it and say, I'm hoping that they don't go down that route with their marketing where they market these kind of crazy things and say, this is the norm within sports cards. Like, people need to realize when they're coming in, and this is something that I've always said, and this is kind of my last point of the show, to be completely honest, is like, they need to make sure they are upfront. I don't know, and maybe it's not for them to do, but maybe it's for people like us to do, like content creators. They need to be upfront and say, if you do this, there's not a good chance that you're going to pull any of these crazy cards. Like, and I understand that's just not how it works, and that's not what they're going to do. But maybe that's just for someone like me to say. I don't know necessarily, but it is cool that they're doing kind of these novelty things. I just hope we don't start going down the route where they are promoting these as the norm within the sports card industry.